Alright guys, welcome back. This is Podcast 10.2. We're still on Kingdom Animalia. We are in the domain Eukarya.
Okay, so this is the cladogram that we saw on the first podcast. I mainly touched on, these traits down here: multicellularity, tissues, bilateral symmetry, body cavity, coelom, endoskeleton, and backbone, and segmentation as well. But let's talk a little bit just about what those mean, what those meant for the adaptations for the animals. So the multicellularity caused a specialization that wasn't there before and an increase in body complexity. The tissues were specialized structures and functions that were not there before. And also there was now muscle and nerve tissue. The bilateral symmetry, that meant that there was a distinct body plan now, and cephalization. Remember, cephalization meant that there was a condensed area of nervous tissue in one area. The body cavity, the increase in body complexity again, also the increase in a digestive and reproductive system. Coelom was increase in the digestive system. Endoskeleton was increase in body size. Segmentation over here, it was a redundancy. Redundancy means something that's done over and over. So it's a redundancy, specialization, and an increase in mobility. It helped them move better. I already said endoskeleton. And then backbone was increase in the body and the brain size, and increase in mobility as well. Okay, so as we've said several times, we are technically in Animalia, in the Kingdom Animalia. So this is just kind of showing the different animal systems that are at play. On the very outside is our integumentary system. That's our skin. So that's for the protection of the inner body. The muscular system, obviously, that's the control of all of the muscles in the body. Skeletal system is all of our bones. Nervous system, that's going to be, what controls our brain, what controls all of the mechanisms in our body is our nervous system. The endocrine system is all of the hormones and steroids that the body produces. And then the circulatory system is obviously the arteries and veins, our heart, and what transports blood around our body.
Okay, again with support systems, moving away from the human body, but in sponges, there's spongin and spicules. In corals, these are actually made of limestone cases. In annelids, these are hydrostatic skeleton. Arthropods have exoskeletons of chitin. In echinoderms, these have inner calcium plates, and then vertebrates have bone, cartilage, endoskeleton like we do.
Okay, so then let's talk about the exchange of materials real quick. Animal cells exchange materials across their cell membrane. Okay, we've talked a lot about the cell membrane. The stuff that we're talking about crossing through that membrane is going to be stuff like fuels for energy, nutrients, oxygen, and also waste. Okay, urea, carbon dioxide, those types of things are waste for the human body, for the animal kingdom. If you're a one-cell organism, then it's going to be very easy, and it's done by diffusion. Remember, diffusion is the movement of materials from a high concentration to a low concentration. So one-cell organisms simply do this by diffusion. If you're a multicellular or many-celled organism, then it's going to be harder. So let's take a look at that, because that's what we are. We're a multi-celled cellular organism.
All right, guys, so you can see in the slide here, on the left-hand side, there's a single cell, versus on this right-hand side, there's multiple cells. So you can think, being one of these materials here, how much easier it'd be just to cross back or forth between one cell versus many different membranes to get where it needs to be.
Okay, so circulatory systems are going to vary a little bit depending on the organism, but in general, all animals have circulatory fluid, which is considered or called blood. They've got tubes or blood vessels, and they have a muscular pump, which is the heart, okay? And we've got two different types down here that we're talking about. We've got an open circulatory system and a closed circulatory system. An open circulatory system is where the blood is just going to wash through the inside of the body, okay? This is, over here, they've got a hemolymph, okay, that they're showing us a picture of. And then over here, a closed system like we have is going to be where, in our case, we've got our arteries and veins that the blood travels through. This is just showing us right here for an earthworm, the heart, the dorsal vessel, the axillary hearts, the ventral vessels, that the blood is going to travel through. Okay, but over here, it just is all open. So you can see that where all of these arrows are going, that's all of the space that blood will be in. Okay, so open and closed is just how it sounds.
Okay, the open circulatory system, taxonomy-wise, this is in invertebrates. Okay, so you can see the insect over here again with the open circulatory system. Also, arthropods and mollusks have this open circulatory system. There's no separation between the blood and the interstitial fluid.
Okay, and then the closed circulatory system, that's going to be found in actually both invertebrates and vertebrates. And some of the examples of invertebrates that it can be found in would be earthworms, squid, octopus. The invertebrates, obviously us, some other mammals with a backbone. Structure-wise, it just means that the blood's going to be confined to those vessels and separate from the interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid, remember, is just the fluid that's in between and amongst the cells. In a closed circulatory system, there can be one or more hearts, actually, and there can be large vessels and small vessels. The material is going to diffuse between the blood vessels and the interstitial fluid in the case of a closed circulatory system. And the last thing that we want you to pay attention to is that in a closed circulatory system, there's going to be higher pressures in that body system.
All right, guys, moving on to gas exchange. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between the environment and our cells. We've been learning this for plant cells and animal cells. So here, they do need moist membrane and they do need a high surface area. So here you can see we talked about cellular respiration before in order for each of our cells to produce ATP. So oxygen and carbon dioxide are used in this process. Carbon dioxide is released from our cell and oxygen is going to be used. Now remember, the way this is transported throughout our body is using that circulatory system. These gases travel in our blood.
Okay, so this is kind of a cool graphic showing you the gas exchange in many different forms. We've got a one-celled or a unicellular organism right here, and remember we said that that was going to be done by simple diffusion. Amphibians, this is going to be their circulatory system. This is an example of a circulatory system for echinoderms. Insects right here, fish right here, and then this would be an example of mammals right here. So this is what our circulatory system looks like. And the main differences are going to be size, water versus land, so either living in the water or living on land, the size of the organism, and then also endothermic versus ectothermic. So that's just warm-blooded versus cold-blooded.
All right, guys, moving right into digestive systems. So everyone's got one. Here we go. We've got earthworms, grasshoppers, and birds. If you want to take a second to look at the differences between these, you can tell they all have their differences.
Okay, so then we also have either two-way digestion or one-way digestion. The first that they've shown us here is the two-way digestion, which means the mouth and the anus are the same opening in the organism. Kind of gross, but that's just how it is. And there's just two examples here showing us. So this is a cnidarian and this is a flatworm over here. And they're showing over here too that you've got your gastrovascular cavity that's right here, and then the pharynx over here. The gastrovascular cavity obviously is much larger, and then it is carried out into a tentacle here.
Okay, animals with a one-way digestive system have a mouth and an anus. Food enters the mouth, continues in one direction through the digestive tract, and waste leave through the anus. This is what we usually think of digestive systems because this is how we work. Okay, and here's just an example of a bird. You know, you've got your mouth, something's digested, it goes straight through the system and exits through the anus. All right, guys, that wraps up Podcast 10.2. Make sure you took notes. If you have any questions, please bring them to class.